Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes.
Good morning, good day.
Geográfica del cual nos están acompañando.
Depending on where you are in the world,
Los detalles para
on
acceder
our
a la
screen you can see the details
vamos a
to
tener
have
traducción
access to the
simultánea
simultaneous
entre inglés
translation
y
channel.
portugués.
We have simultaneous translation into English,
Informarles que
Spanish,
también esta
and
sesión será
Portuguese.
grabada para posteriormente
I also want to inform you
en el
that
canal de
this
YouTube de la
meeting
reserva.
will be recorded to be shared in future through our YouTube channel.
Por favor, si la plataforma puede mostrar la filmina con los detalles para el tema.
Please show us the videos and the slide for this with the details for the simultaneous translation. The slide shows us how to access the translation channel. Please click on the globe and then choose your desired language. If you can't see the globe, please click and select the three dots.
En algunos minutos iniciaremos. Muy buenos días, buenas
We
tardes.
will begin in some minutes. Good day, good afternoon to all of you. So on the screen you have the details to access simultaneous translation. We will have simultaneous translation in English, Spanish and Portuguese.
Aprovecho también la ocasión para comentarles e informarles que esta sesión va a ser grabada.
I also want to use this opportunity to inform you that this session will be recorded and we will share it in future on our YouTube channel.
Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos todos. Vamos a dar inicio entonces al acto de apertura. Es un
Good
honor.
morning, good afternoon to all of you. We will begin with our event with the opening part. In this event, for the closing of the regional project, strengthening external financial control for the prevention and effective fight against control. I'm Irineo Campos, and we will see the advancements and the achievements of OLACEFS together with the GIZ and the German Ministry for International Cooperation and Financial Development. I want to say thank you to all of you that contributed with your experience, your knowledge, your ideas, your innovative ideas to reach the goals of our anti-corruption project. We have authorities from the OLACEFS, representatives from Entosai Cooperative from GIZ, representatives of the German Embassy in Brazil, and from the GIZ from Germany. We also have representatives from the Ministry for Economic Development and Cooperation. Now I hand over the floor to Dr. Camilo Benitez, President of the OLACEFS and General Comptroller of the Republic of Paraguay. Good afternoon, dear representatives from GIZ, authorities, friends of all the cooperation agencies, and all other NGOs. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 years of implementation, this project comes to an end, and this moment is opportune to reflect and talk about all the actions that we did together with the cooperation of the GIZ. The OLACEFS that in 2023 reached 60 years of work and with a very complex work environment, we were able to consolidate an effective platform regarding how we show the bills.
In 2023 and 2028, I'd like to discuss about internal discussions under a participatory and inclusive approach for which communications were sent to all members of SAIs, bodies and working groups, as well as interested parties. In this sense, the strategic plan has maintained the essence of OLACEFS, promoting learning as well as the exchange of knowledge and experiences with the objective of having SAIs that are stronger and better prepared for future changes. We show our resilience with the conviction that united us as a region, we can achieve great results. This strategic vision summarized in the plan is fully aligned with everything learned institutionally within the framework of the development of this project, since it replicates and crystallizes all the work and knowledge generated and transferred within the framework of this bilateral OLACEFS-GIZ relationship. This strategic plan has 6 strategic goals, each one of them organized by strategies and products. As can be observed in the different objectives, there is always a component related to and aligned to the goals established in the regional project in question, allowing the sustainability of the processes and products, ensuring their impact. It is fair to highlight that the origin of this regional project was developed in a global scenario of pandemic and post-pandemic. Therefore, it is even more comforting to recognize today the achievements and the seriousness of the joint process between the parties, which has generated value and impact in each one of the goals established for the regional project. In this context, we highlight that we have conducted 2 coordinated audits focused on the impact of COVID-19 in the region. One of them referred to the policies for the achievement of the SDGs and mitigation of the impact of COVID-19 with emphasis on the reduction of gender gaps, and the other referred to the socioeconomic aid programs that the countries have implemented in the framework of COVID-19. Both experiences of joint collaboration were immediate and urgent responses to the global context of the pandemic, showcasing the institutional framework of OLACEFS with the support provided by GIZ, yielding fruitful results, and this was reflected in the results obtained. Latin America and the Caribbean region was one of the most affected regions in all senses, because of the sanitation measures that have taken time to be considered, considering the vulnerability of the health system and economic context and basic needs that should be satisfied for the population of these countries. In this country, OLACEFs have had a collaboration for many areas of the public policies, and then we generated value to increase the levels of residents in the institutionalized field. We want to share the experience as one of the components that is very strong in our work. It has allowed us to have transversalize these measures in the process that we have in place. So, having these actions, we have performed auditing in many areas, giving special attention in the production of the work of women, just as fighting the corruption in the scenario of the 19 COVID. Both efforts and the materials that we have developed, they come after the crystallization of the policy on gender equality, and also bringing up new things and the instruments that come up, many actions that assert the effective implementation in this SAIS. So it's relevant to highlight that the group of work gender in the last assembly we have developed in the city of Lima, Peru, there was a hierarchy in the technical conditions to offer the sustainability according to this mentioned policy. Accordingly, we highlight the program of education to learn to transversalize the focus on gender, and also in the SAIs of OLACEF that enabled the promotion in its practice in the gender equality, discrimination, and inclusion of the necessary members of the society. Another of the fundamental issues of the project has been the citizen participation. In this sense, the project has supported 6 concrete experiences in which, among other things, a continuous training platform that has been created, promoting education, innovation, and knowledge exchange through microlearning. The exchange of knowledge through microlearning, likewise, the approach with external stakeholders has been favored in order to exchange experiences and good practices, highlighting the vulnerable groups that have been part of this project with native communities in Guatemala. In the context of promoting citizen participation, we have a key impact to consolidate and control the quality of the life and reduce the gaps and social demands in the region of the world with great challenges to guarantee human rights. In the case of SAI of Paraguay, which I lead, we have a concrete experience of success called Citizen Synergy, which resulted in the implementation of the first institutional anti-corruption program. This program allowed the installation of an innovation laboratory for citizen participation, which has the co-creation with actors and players, stakeholders from civil society and the private sector. In a short period of time, this laboratory has made it possible to build an impactful experience, namely through a group of organized citizens who have organized a joint work that has been established to address a problem around the problem of the indiscriminate proliferation of fuel stations and their impact on the community and also on the environment. This process resulted in an alertive technical report, many papers, because of these findings that have generated great commotion and public debate, which has led the President of the Republic of Paraguay that has a decree of 5 years to install such stations. Having all these axes that are very relevant in this project, having the support and development of digital tools, considering the era of powerful digital transformation in the field of governmental control. Great opportunities that brings to the process of accountability and transparency of governmental programs, and also projects that are huge, many of which would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. Real-time control, the use of big data and artificial intelligence are just some of the issues that have brought a revolution in our ways of doing things. In this sense, the project has focused on the acquisition of knowledge and transfer of good practices in this area, as well as overcoming the technological gaps existing among our members of SAIs. Therefore, among the 6 initiatives carried out, we highlight issues such as risk analysis through digital tools that measure historical results in control processes, implementing artificial intelligence as an initiative of comparative analysis of price values in the oversight of tenders involving the purchase of medicines, of drugs. This is a very sensitive issue in Latin American region. These two, as well as other tools, have not only optimized our internal processes, but have also been adopted by other SAIs, thanks to their scalability, which demonstrates the transforming impact of our collaboration. Finally, I would like to dwell on an axis of great strategic and political relevance that this project has promoted. It is related to the valuable tools, the OLACEFS Regional Policy for the Prevention and Fight Against Corruption, whose objective is to promote actions in the SAIS oriented towards the prevention, detection, and fight against corruption. As part of the implementation of this policy, we are performing the project of diagnosis in the SAS in Chile, Colombia, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela. And now we are preparing the implementation of these plans to highlight that the results of this initiative will make it possible to know the degree of progress in compliance with anti-corruption measures in this SAIS, as well to identify good practices and areas for improvement and to optimize the respective institutional anti-corruption plans for Latin America and the Caribbean. The development of tools and mechanisms to prevent and fight corruption is always at the center of any political action, since this problem perpetuates poverty, backwardness, inequality, and the lack of consolidation of democracy. Therefore, the fact that 24 members of OLACEFS have reached a consensus on a policy establishing a working agenda on this issue and have also decided to make this working group a permanent technical commission, that's a success that was never thought before, and this has laid the foundations and conditions. Allow me to highlight in a few brief lines a great joint achievement to establish the Center for Innovation and Development, CIDE, that has promoted this presidency within the framework of the last General Assembly of our organization. The CIDE seeks to become a platform that facilitates and fosters the capacity of SAIS to face the future challenges in government management through the generation of applied knowledge, research, innovation, and the promotion of dialogue and citizen participation. Dear friends, as you will see, there are many achievements, and it's difficult to summarize them in just a few minutes of speech. However, I am convinced that the impact of this work will generate profound transformations in our organizations, and thus in the control of accountability systems of Latin America and the Caribbean region. I am sure that there are still many pending challenges, and that's why we are eager to be able to give continuity to several of the issues achieved in the professional work that we have been consolidating for 14 years with the German cooperation. It is appropriate at this moment to thank the entire technical and professional team of the German Cooperation Technical Systems, as well as the commitment of the supreme audit institutions that have demonstrated that they are serious about this work, and we are honored to their word through a clear institutional political will of collaboration and support. I take this opportunity to extend to each of you my highest esteem and my respects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supreme Controller. And now we will hear David Gomez Paramo. He is Senior Auditor of the Mexican Federation and also the Executive Secretary of OLACEF.
Saludo con afecto al presidente de OLACEFS, Camilo Benítez, y al ministro del
I want to say hello to Dr. Camilo Benítez, all the representatives. And the same way, I want to say hello to the Executive Secretary, all the Supreme Audit institutions, and also I want to say hello to Hannes Smeltzer, that is a representative of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. For over 14 years, GIZ and OLACEFS are working together. This is very important for the strengthening of the external financial control, for the prevention and the active combating of corruption. It's important to consolidate the control of the governance and to increase the trust of people in our public institutions. This strategy is so important to us. It began in 2021 with the goal to support the efforts of the SAI, together with OLACEFS, in the development of projects and initiatives to work against corruption, and we had expectations to reach our goals. From the beginning, the partnership between OLACEFS and GIZ and the Supreme Court for Accounts in Brazil fought about a good space for the best practices and alternatives to strengthen all the fiscalization against corruption. So I want to enjoy this space to highlight the history of success that we had at OLACEFS together with GIZ. The development of this project has many examples that we want to share with a lot of pride. And the development of this project and the other implementation in this many years of partnership, we learned valuable lessons and good practices that together with our work with all the SAIs, the GIZ, OLACEFS and all other partners, we were able to develop initiatives that are materialized in aspects that are determined by our results. And this enabled us to create correct approaches. One of these initiatives that are well known by our community are related to high-level training, coordinated audits, and opening for dialogue spaces with specialists and stakeholders. These activities, as many others, were meant to reach our goals as the regional policies. And I want to highlight again the projects of OLACEFS to combat corruption. Through this partnership that is so important for Latin American and Caribbean, shows a better future and shows us also that we are continuously looking to improve our work regarding relevant issues regarding corruption and sustainable goals, and also diminishing the risk of the environment. Oh, and obviously, as I said already, the combat of corruption and prevention of corruption. Now we will open a new chapter of cooperation as the new key for local development. In that sense, all the participants of the organization recognize the relevance of the SAI in the combat to corruption, and that's why we continue working in this direction. So I finish my speech once more highlighting my deepest thank you to all the participants for the excellent work, and we hope to be an impulse for all the SAI. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos las palabras del Auditor Superior de la Federación de México.
Thank you very much for your words of the Senior Auditor of the Mexican Federation. Now we will listen to Minister Jorge Oliveira. This is from the Federal Court of Accounts. That is the President of Intersai. And so I want to say hello to all David Comenari from Mexico, Mrs. Hannah Schmelz, representatives of the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, and all other participants. With huge joy, I want to say some words in this closing event. And I want to thank also the GIZ, the regional project for the stellar financial control for the prevention and effective combating of corruption is very important for all control superior audit institutions. And this is a huge problem that we have in many countries, and that makes the social development more difficult. The UN declares that the cost of the global corruptions represents 5% of the global GDP. So we are robbed by entire schools and hospitals. And corruption has many phases. And sometimes it's just shown when the prejudice, the bad things are too big. So since 1990, we begin to fight against this phenomena, working with anthropology and other sciences. Many public institutions and private institutions in many countries work every day to combat this huge problem. It's important to have prevention systems and good laws to prevent. And with solid institutions and good competencies, it's important to have a collaboration between the countries. We are, as supreme audit institutions, the main actors, and we need to set the laws in the public spaces. We have expertise and understanding of the management and the public finances, beginning with the policies and implementations. We can and must incentive the public managers to increase their quality of work and their policies and combat the corruption. So it's important that the OLACEFS and the co-working with the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation, we achieved great results and we promote impacts that will be described today. Going through all the three main topics, the non-discrimination agenda and applied innovation. So we see that the GIZ is the main key as well as the international cooperation. The project is very important to have a bigger impulse for the SAI, members of the OLACEFS, in their work against corruption. After 3 works of implementation, we are coming to an end. The OLACEFS and the GIZ, in a very fair way, read the goals reached, and many important steps were done, and we must go on. I thank you all and congratulate all the actors that were involved and hope that international cooperation is fortified to get to the goals that we all want. Thank you very much to all. Thank you very much for the words of the Minister Jorge de Oliveira. And now we will listen to Mrs. Hannah Smeltzer, representatives of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, Germany. She is the assessor for Latin America and is also responsible for the bilateral cooperation with Brazil and other projects of cooperation at OLACEFS. Mrs. Smeltzer, you have the floor. É muito importante estarmos hoje aqui e vermos os resultados da nossa cooperação. Por muitos anos, a OLACEF foi uma parceira e é uma parceira do Ministério da Economia, Cooperação e Desenvolvimento.
Of good practices, as well as on the mutual learning on cross-cutting issues. Let me first of all congratulate the authorities and staff of the OLACEF's member supreme audit institutions on their organization's recent 60th birthday and anniversary, and on the conclusion of the 3rd regional project together with GIZ on behalf of German cooperation. The project has focused on a fundamental topic in the face of the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic: the prevention and effective fight against corruption. The alliance with OLACEFS has made it possible to optimize the performance of the organization, to increase the range of support measures offered to its members, and to promote work on issues of regional interest such as environmental audits, the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, and the prevention of corruption. High-impact collaborative learning initiatives have been developed, such as cooperative audits, technical visits, internships, as well as other resources for strategic communication and increasingly effective collaboration with external stakeholders. Moreover, joint work has been undertaken to drive digital transformation, to enhance a just transition, and to promote gender equity and non-discrimination. German cooperation believes in an integrated approach in which audit work is not isolated from the indispensable collaboration with other public and private actors to ensure accountability and government improvement. This is even more relevant in a region marked by migratory flows in search of better living conditions, of states facing risks to democracy, and in an environment that requires joint and decisive action against climate change. In this session, we will learn about the results of 3 extremely important cross-cutting issues: the role of supreme audit institutions in emerging situations, gender and non-discrimination, and the relevance of innovation. Let me highlight particularly the role of the audit teams and staff of the 22 supreme audit institutions participating in the project. I'm very much looking forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Agradecemos a las autoridades por sus palabras y de este modo cerramos la parte
Thank you
protocolar.
very much for your nice words, and we finish the protocolar part of our event. Now we can begin our technical part, and is organized by three main topics: emerging topics, gender and no discrimination, and innovation applied to external control. We define these as the main topics that are very relevant for the cooperation with Germany, and we also see that are important for many international platforms. So therefore, we begin our first session talking about the SAIs, and we will see a video how this can contribute on this axis.
Desarrollo sostenible. Este es el enfoque que debe orientar nuestra actuación como sociedad en
This
todos
is the approach that should guide our action as a society in all areas.
y la escasez de recursos naturales están afectando en
Climate
todo
change, environmental degradation, and the scarcity of natural resources are affecting all over the world. These challenges threaten the governance, well-being, and the sustainable development of our society, especially of the most vulnerable people and groups. In this context, crises such as the ones caused by COVID-19 pandemic underscore the importance of how to work while keeping in mind the risk of corruption. All these can significantly the risk. Corruption has the potential to exacerbate poverty, food insecurity, and inequality, among other socio-economic environmental impacts. That is why it's important to have a firm, coordinated, and cross-sectoral attention is required to prevent further corruption. In this scenario, the contribution of government to external control to sustainable development, integrity culture, and a just transition. Supreme audit institutions play a fundamental role in strengthening governance and public trust. By promoting transparency, governmental accountability, improving public policies, and citizen participation. These elements are essential for achieving the Agenda 2030 among the other international agreements. Furthermore, the auditing work of these institutions contributes to the prevention of corruption and the development of a culture of integrity. The Regional Anti-Corruption Project implemented by OLACEFS and the German Corporation supported a series of initiatives focused on emerging issues. Among the initiatives carried out, coordinate or regional audits on the effectiveness of the policies implemented to combat poverty and mitigate the impact of COVID-19 stand out. In both cases, emphasis was placed on the differential impact on women and people in vulnerable situations. In addition, innovative measures were promoted for capacity development to encourage a more timely and efficient response from audit teams, supported by information technologies. Get to know more about the project's response to emerging issues and its action towards a just cause, just transition. Thank you very much. Now I hand the floor over to Mr. Mario Salgado, civil engineer. Civil engineer with a PhD in seismic engineering with experience in the development of disaster risk assessment. He has coordinated different international projects in Latin American and Caribbean, Asia, Africa, Central Europe, and Indian Ocean region. Consultant for the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, and the United Nations Agency. Currently Program Management Officer at the United Nations Regional Office for the Americas and the Caribbean for Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR. You have the floor, Mr. Salgado. Hello, good morning, and thank you very much for your presentation. I want to share first my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Sí, la estamos viendo. Sí, la estamos viendo. Perfecto.
Yes, we see it. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. For me, it's an honor to be here with you in this closing event of the project. And as we've seen in the previous presentation, it ends after 3 years of work. Directly linked to the disaster risk reduction department of the UN, we see here the reduction of the risks, and we also want to highlight our national and local responsibility and the participation of all the stakeholders in this process. In that sense, we want to highlight the transparency and that the combat against corruption allows us to use better our resources for the more vulnerable participants. Here we have the main keys for governance in the reduction of risks. We also want to offer a special window for transparency, and we want to have the participation of other stakeholders. And also we have a last part, the accountability in the management of the risks and the use of the financial resources in the recuperation. As you all know, we take our decisions based in the heat of the moment. So that's our main priority, is do the correct risk management. And we have many challenges regarding topics as accountability. And this is very important with some important topics that are related to understand better what type of disaster it is, to understand better the risk of disaster and have the detailed data. And that means that you have a subgrouping by gender, economic level, and lack of capacity. This also implies many challenges as to how to get this data, how I make this data available. And you also need a coordination to cover the problems and challenges regarding financing. So, as a second priority, and the Sendai
can also the governance that support the understanding and the risks in all areas, and also to highlight the responsibility of the review of accounts and also the coordination different levels, the integration of the risk decision and all decisions that we make. And also one of the challenges is the lack of transparency and also the offering of accounts. So we have to say that to strengthen the governance in the accounts, we have to prepare and also have an articulation, the coordination of the risk assessment and engage all the different parties and stakeholders in the circulation and use of these reports. And on the other side, we have to prioritize that the investment, reduction of risks, and also resilience. That's what we need to increase the public investment. Recently, in the next weeks, we will publish a regional document that will analyze how we are promoting the risk analysis and highlighting what we have been done regarding the possibilities, also the risk integration, public investment, and also the lack of governmental prioritization, mainly indicating that the governments they are not prioritizing equally the risk reduction in disasters. And so there is not lots of hallmarks to finance nationwide and also in the cities, in the municipalities. Also, the integration of risk reduction in the processes of decision making, and then look for the success in financing that it's important having accountability and many mechanisms of recording these actions. Also, we have the regional risks in the priority 4 that has to do how we're going to be better prepared facing the disasters to answer these disasters, how to recover, rehabilitation, reconstruction, having the capacity of the local players to understand the system to reduce accounts and rely on the transparency systems to use the resources. So that's the need that funds that have been used in an effective manner, and also to have a transversal understanding how we're going to follow them up and how the resources were used. The challenge that we face is to understand the priorities, coordinations of these projects, and also the limited capacity of answers and then high risks of corruption. We also count on an action plan in the region to implement these hallmarks, having the means to reduce the risks and transparency to manage the resources, including those that are accountable for that, and having a greater participation of civil society and other stakeholders in these tasks. We have identified all of that as clear tasks. On the other side, we have to highlight the IDB is working in the development of the governance indexes and public policies in the recent disasters risks, having a component indicators of reducing risks in its governance. For that, we observe that there is a matrix structure in which we observe the columns indicating the different areas of the policies, all these components that are part of this reform, having a public policy that will fight the risks and disasters. These indicators are formed by 241 indicators that will produce better measures in the countries. We also have Costa Rica, Mexico, and Guatemala having these policies, but I also have to say that the region has lots of success in the norms and regulations, offering more access to information, all related to the risks and disasters mitigation. There are lots of challenges that we still face for the future. And also, recently, we have published this document showing the reduction of risks and disasters in Central America and also Dominican Republic to reduce these disasters and risks in South America and also in the Caribbean region for the development and cooperation in the region. This paper highlights the mechanisms that were used in the national systems in the region and how it can be replicated, justify, and explain the use of the public resources that are ascribed for this system, for these actions, and also the citizen participation to reduce the risks and disasters. We are going to keep on working with many examples that highlight the efforts for Guatemala and Costa Rica. For example, here we have in Costa Rica, since 2015, we prepared this policy to reduce risks. 15 years in 2030, the implementation of this program has to be ready and is going to be reviewed every 5 years. We have this platform. All the systems and agencies to reduce risks will observe the targets and how it's being worked out, because before the information was given in a very, fragmented manner. And now we are working jointly to make a better information for the public. We are designing new systems and monitoring and following up. It's called as 2023 that has many resources, many features that are going to be will offer access to information and also transparency of its outcomes. Up to 2021, Costa Rica was offering report manually of the national data, so we are missing some data. Now, basically, what we have, it's a summary of these losses and that we have had and damages. Now, having this new system in place, we have a tool that is very robust, very strong, that will offer the outcomes of different institutions according to these actions and plans. We are going to offer this information in a systematized fashion. Now we're going to talk about Guatemala. We also have a design implementation of a system just as this one that we have in 2028 and 22. It has high quality, is completely integrated, not only 8 processes, but also many other processes that are in place, increasing the capacity of accounts review, transparency, because the public management is clearly documented, showing their responsibility, accountability, and established many criteria to evaluate its quality. Well, SysMeCid is another platform. It's a tool that works since 2010. It's a system that registers the data, consolidating information for events that might come into proper disaster or a possible disaster, and now we have necessary information for the proper management and also for the decision-making process. That's a system that is getting stronger because we're integrating many other systems in this, having updated information with quality continuously by experts in a team that we have 65 people working on this process. It's a tool only for the members of the system that they are accredited by the Secretariat and other members of the board that are working on the disasters, and they are all of them have accreditation and have access to this information that I have mentioned before. Also, we have to highlight Central American Management System that has a consultancy forum that was invited by CEPREDINAC. It's a consultation system that is part of the government that develop ongoing outcomes on the implementation of these policies. This forum engages different organizations, also civil organizations, academia, international parties, and a series of agencies and specialized secretariats that are working in the management and also mainly in the risks and disasters. To wrap up, I'd like to highlight the 7 points. That firstly is the implementation of this robust system that are online, that offers more efficiency in the public management. Also, as we said, these examples in Costa Rica and Guatemala. Secondly, it's fundamental to approach digital gaps to guarantee the inclusion of vulnerable groups and also mechanisms of offering accounts online, promote projects that integrate technologies in information systems to guarantee the transparency, access to information, and also citizen participation. Promote transparency in the use of resources made in Costa Rica. It's contributing a lot for the public transparency. Related to that, we have to promote lots of projects that integrate technologies, information, to guarantee the access to information in the participation of citizens and guarantee the transparency in the offering of accounts. And lastly, we wanted to have a strengthening of the institutions that are working with the government, both locally and also nationally. That's what basically the message that I'd like to convey to you from my office. And also I'd like to thank for the indication for this event. I'm available for any questions or any remarks, consultation that might arise that we can support. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor Salgado, por su presentación.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salgado, for your presentation. And now we begin the second section, that is gender and discrimination. And in the same way, we will project a video that shows the contribution of the project and the theme. How can Supreme Audit institutions strengthen the gender equality and non-discrimination approach? Crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic have highlighted the profound differences across various sectors of our social diversity, creating gaps in gender equality. Corruption, a risk exacerbated by the pandemic, disproportionately affects vulnerable populations and hits the poorest hardest, especially women, who represent a larger proportion of global poverty. The promotion of the gender equality and the elimination of disadvantages and discrimination are cross-cutting themes, key pillars of action to promote integrated solutions within the Regional Anti-Corruption Project OLACEFS German cooperation, with a focus of strengthening human non-discrimination, equal opportunities and empowerment. The project developed successful initiatives with an intersectional approach addressing various dimensions of discrimination and promoting collaboration, citizen participations, and the full utilization of the potential of all people. The support initiatives include coordinated or regional audits, capacity development measures, enhancement of the strategic communication, and effective interinstitutional collaboration of supreme audit institutions, as well as tools for increased citizen participation in various processes of governmental external control. For over 10 years, OLACEFS, with support from German cooperation, has been working to further enhance the transformative approach to gender and non-discrimination, amplifying the relevant role of supreme audit institutions in the external control of public governance. Because equality is fundamental for a just transition and sustainable development. How can we further advance on this issue? Learn more and get involved.
Seguidamente, tengo el placer de presentar a la señora Francisca Quiroga. Ella
In this space, I have the pleasure to introduce to you Francisca Quiroga, has a master in political science and a postgraduate in discourse analysis, political scientist, professor and academic of the Latin American School of Graduate Studies, currently founding partner of and director of the Center for Studies and Training, QSV, Management and Politics, methodological advisor in different intersectoral roundtables of the public sector, as an expert in public policy analysis, gender approach and human rights perspective in public management. You have the floor. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm happy to be here. Let's talk about this topic that the video already presented to us, and it showed some aspects. We talked about the intersectionality of public policies and how we are able to give a sense and recognition. Just a second, I'm looking for my presentation to share my screen with you. And in order to see the concepts and some numbers that are very important, we need to talk about equality in gender, and it's important to understand there's analysis that we can review the public policies and rethink which are the formats today. The history that we from the organizations, what are we seeing and what are we doing regarding gender? We are talking about gaps of gender where the women are, as well as that groups that are not visible, that sometimes are really invisible. So we need to put our focus on gender that somehow allows us to have a more reflexive look and with a proposition. So that's I want to talk about to you about that. In this event, we are talking about achieved goals of coordinated work and the combat against corruption. We also need to think about what are the evidence showing us, what are the data showing us in our region and in the Caribbean, where the inequality of gender was declared and is part of the goals. We have the 2030 agenda with the SDGs that says that the public policies must look to gender equality. But how to go from this look to another one, to see really what is happening in our region. So that's why I want to invite you all to look to the challenges, because it will show us also how far we already went and how which policies still need to be implemented. We need to include vulnerable populations that today are far from the state somehow, and we could also say they abandon it. And we also need to talk about indigenous population, immigrants, and they feel that the state does not see them, do not value them, and that creates a mistrust, a deep mistrust, because trust and credibility build impact in the people's lives is the basis of the fight against corruption. And this is a basic right. And how can we put this in the public policies and in the head of people? So this technical view allows us to see that we need a social component in all of this. And it must be intersectional. That's what I wanted to say in a very summarized way, how we can look to these vulnerable groups and how we can think about the public policies and external controls in all the process that they work with. Regarding the impact, we want to make the governance better. We want to make democracy better in Latin American and Caribbean. When we meet, the topic is always inequality, the concentration of wealth in groups, and groups that are very precarious and other groups that feel totally abandoned are excluded. So that's why it should be a main concern. And when we put into this formula inequality of gender, climate change, we will see what will change the territory. So, and pandemic has also a huge influence in a region that was profoundly affected, as we saw in the previous presentations. So that's why we need to put on our agenda this permanent debate between states regarding how to create public policies for to adapt and prevent climate change. We are talking about some topics that are scientific and other politic. If we do not work with communities, we will stop talking to them. We need to work with them. And this is a very important theme. How will we rethink our relationship, the ISSs, with these vulnerable groups? We need to recognize that and make it visible. We also need to talk about the effects of the climate change. Women, indigenous people, immigrants, we see here that they are the groups that are being hit the hardest, the biggest gender inequality, social inequality. These people are feeling the climate change already. And we need to check what needs to be done. And ESSs need to do something in the mainly in the sustainable development goals. So I want to show you some numbers to talk about the gender inequality. We know that at OLACEFS you have these policies, but we are talking about 750 million women and children that have married before they were 18. And in over 30 countries, they get genital mutilation. And there are also a lot of violence against women. One in each 5 women or children, including 19% of women and children between 15 and 49 years, have suffered physical violence, and there are no laws to protect them in many countries. So gender violence is another important topic. We are talking about women and also the discrimination that they suffer, that understand the norms and the power relationships. It's important for the public policies to protect them. We are seeing here in this focus that will allow us the design, the implementation of public policies to protect women. We have many numbers to see here. And in the political part of it, we see that only 30% of women, the 30% of all places in the Congress are women. So we need more women in places of power. We are talking about access and also about focus of about autonomy to fill these gender gaps, these income gaps. And we also want to talk about gender barriers. And sometimes these barriers of gender are legal bottlenecks in the public administration. So public administration should have a diagnosis to make these exercises based on gender and human rights, to understand and have knowledge where the problems are, where the gaps are, and where the gender barriers are. Sometimes the gender barriers are just accepted, and sometimes we do not know how to and how to talk to vulnerable groups. And there's no mapping of the key stakeholders. We have a good domain over the international organizations, but sometimes we do not recognize and doing the mapping exercise and seeing the vulnerable groups, women, immigrants, and indigenous people that live in a situation of destruction, discrimination. And there we can again see the intersectionality with the gender gap. And the most efficient public policies have an intersectional point of view regarding the care of these people. And again, I need to remember you of the pandemic and the high level of woman deaths, and this affects us as society. And we also need to have the capacity to think about these topics. So during the pandemic, we make several steps back, and we went back in time. And therefore, it's very important to understand that inequality in the distribution of resources and in the distribution of the housework must be considered in the public policies in to guarantee integrated strategy how to manage this care. And this is a challenge for all the public administration and all the educational, higher education entities. So I want to talk about the Global Gender Gap Report 2021 that is just terrible. It's terrible to see this report and to see how much we went back during COVID, mainly mainly in the topic of care in all the classes and all the variables we had made steps back. Regarding children and elderly, we also make made steps back. Healthcare, elderly, they need assistance, medical assistance. So we need to look at them, look at that all, because discrimination regarding other women beyond certain age, leaving these people alone. The abandonment of elderly was huge, and the women had to take care of their adult parents, of the children 24 by 7. So behind these numbers, there are families, there are people, there's a community. And when we think about a public community, we need to think about a sustainable public policies for gender. Governance should not forget that these designs are given, and we need to focus on the participation, economical participation, and on the community and political empowerment. We are thinking now how to do these initiatives.
Greatest problem of the society, we have the problems of gender inequality. We have added the effects of the inequalities, also the effects of climate change. We need to think what has happened with the poverty affects all the people, the spaces. What is happening with these most vulnerable groups that do not have the spaces of power? Many times they are not the same thing for those that are making decisions. That's the sort of things, how to fight anti-corruption, the power of money that is on the table, on the nature of the public, what is public, what is private, what do we want to change, the lives of people. Exactly what we need is to understand the inequalities. It's fundamental about the development models, and all of that is behind about these multiple types of violence. Here's a little better. We have this gender gap that is kind of better after the pandemic. I know you have worked a lot on that, but I'd like to say that the gender inequalities, observe here what is happening. We have 162 years. We have all this gap, 162 years for the 169 years for the economic participation opportunity gender gap, and 16 years for the educational attainment gender gap. So the problem with education of women currently it's because they're not able to reach powerful jobs, maybe having doctorship or also postgraduate programs, because there is a huge gap in the education sector. Well, it's mainly in the Caribbean and Latin American regions. We have cultural changes, uh, governmental will. I want to highlight the points that you already have mentioned: the state, the quality of democracy that has a component of social cohesion. We cannot talk about sustainable development and fair transition governance without thinking what is happening with the populations that are vulnerable, and the gender approach as a definition of what is happening now. But we must bear in mind the gender inequality in all its work, and how we can support and help to highlight all these sort of things, and then we will improve the lives of people, and also the rights and all the components in the exercise of democracy. That's an approach that could be very long to discuss as gender and human rights, but we have to think, and what is the problem? Let's talk about climate change. Being a consultant, an academic, I work with the indigenous communities, women's community in vulnerability, also with the state, and recognize the role of state, how these institutions are established, how they talk to one another, how they discuss these problems with the vulnerable groups. And of course, the problems that we face is that the approach should be different. And here I'd like to propose the rights approach. You have observed that what is the meaning of thinking about the vulnerable people, not a beneficiary, not as a logic of giving assistance. We have to think in approach of rights of these groups as women, migrants, indigenous people, people that have disabilities. So this group that are not part of the civil societies, the approach of gender, all of them have rights, and we have to think this paradigm, the paradigm, how the state is related to these vulnerable groups, and how to have a relation. We should have an intercultural approach, how we're going to communicate, having a clear language that is really pertaining to inclusion. Pertaining is a very important component when you talk about the concept of different areas, different axes. We have to think about all the violence that we suffer. Women that have high level of education, non-indigenous, they have and suffer different violences compared to indigenous women. Those that are far from the power center, that do not receive the public investment. When we understand the intersectional possibilities, we can ponder further on how we can think about the territory approach, having a deeper knowledge, a more local knowledge, and also a gender approach. Currently, we observe that we have opportunities to improve the governance considering these approaches, and together with this approach, gender intersections between the cultures and also the territories that discussed amongst each other, we have the possibility that this SAIS, they can promote these people, talking about people, communities, and how we can map all of that to the interested parties, stakeholders that sometimes do not have formal power and they do not recognize one another. And we are going to be able to have a rights approach of gender, to look into these vulnerable groups, to generate actions, thinking that the climate change serve for these groups because they are more vulnerable, they are more marginalized, and how we can have how we can understand these actions and promote these actions, being closer to these people, in which you have to value these ancestors' knowledge, mainly when we think about the indigenous people, not the state that believes that they know everything. That's a barrier that we have to overcome. We have to get to know, understand their means of life. It's difficult to change the paradigm we have. We can continue being technical, applying theories, human theories, but really, we won't be able to do that if we don't fight against corruption. But all of that should go together with the knowledge. When we work in communities, indigenous communities with indigenous people, we have to do an exercise of learning. And the climate change affects these communities, having reports about vulnerable groups and the climate change, because these are women that suffer the most. And they are also the most affected because of the climate change effects. There is a community in which the land has low and high temperatures. In these communities, they migrate to other territories. There is also a way of changing their workforce. Some of them are indigenous rural women, such as in our region, also in the Caribbean regions. They have to take care of the land and all of the family as well. These women, they do not own the land. The state does not grant the power to use the land somehow. They should be part of the technical assistance of the state to have a follow-up. We have to rethink having this approach of rights, interculture, inter-society, having a different way of looking at them, having an understanding, a precise understanding of other natures, and mainly thinking in the transition, socio-ecological transition that we are going through now. That's a challenge. I don't like to bring a problem, but we have to generate a group. We have to understand that's not a classic paradigm, but we have to rethink the manners of analysis between the regions, thinking that the vulnerabilities of indigenous people, of women facing the climate change, they have different difficulties, different challenges, and we cannot apply the same logic. Sometimes the public administration, we place everything in the same bucket. It's okay. Great standards because they organize, they align, but we should have a differentiation because the territory components and realities of these territories, they should be thought about. They should be part of this public policy. We have to think about that and include that in our diagnosis, because we have gaps, gender barriers that are very specific, and also the vulnerability of women, mainly the indigenous one, mainly in the hallmark of indigenous people. We have to rethink in the structure, public structure, when you think about the cities, and we have to oversee sometimes what has happened that are that are managed by the SAIS, that we have to have better results, better outcomes. Well, not doing nothing, it's a problem. We are in this level sometimes in which you go to a level to recognize, to visualize these people, in which these strategics to face the climate change, we must have a hallmark and know what we want to go. Having all of that, we should have a different look, an approach that is both culturally and also should be understood in the society. I would like to have this look because we should have different ideas. We are used to bring diagnosis. What do we do? Firstly, we have to understand the vulnerabilities of this group. The vulnerabilities will be greater with the climate change, and we must think about the threats, policies, also to have political well, different leaderships, inclusion, communitarian leaders, and also that these communities, they should play the key roles. We must go to spaces of participation and decision making, and also build together that this participation is effective and makes sense. What I'm inviting you today is to think all of that, thinking deeply. When we fight against corruption, we have to think that the SAIs, they have to think about that. It's not that the SAIs they denounce, but they should know that they are recognized and that they are also known.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was a great presentation, Mrs. Quiroga. And now we begin the third section about the topic innovation applied to the external control of the government. So I want to introduce to you Dr. Luis Carlos Naranjo, Doctor in Computer Science, Master in Business Administration, and Bachelor in Computer Science and Informatics, with extensive academic and work experience in the industrial sector. Currently, he is teaching and researching in software and system requirements as well as accessibility, usability, and intelligent systems. Dr. Naranjo, you have the floor. Good morning. So, okay, you can share your screen now, doctor. Let's begin. Okay, thank you. Good morning. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you in this extraordinary panel. I'm Dr. Luis Naranjo. I work at the University Centfotec at Costa Rica, and we are working in many different important sectors in innovation, and we are having applied research project under the supervision of the Republic of Costa Rica. What is the difference between something new and innovation? There's an important difference, and that's why I say that specifically this word, everything that was not being used and not is being used now is something new. But innovation needs another effort. I had a previous research as we are doing. We need to go through many different standardization steps to get a very close, sensitive solution of what our clients needs. In this case, in our university in Costa Rica. So there are the external governmental control to fight corruption. We need to guarantee the integrity, the efficiency and transparency in the public administration, the external control that can be done and that will make us implement the fighting against corruption. And it's important that the policies of the government must be aligned. So I want to go quickly through that so we are still on time. So a derivative of a research that we are doing with the scrutiny of the government of Costa Rica are these integrated circuits that was developed in the university together with GIZ. And these circuits control these cameras on the right side. These cameras are part of a network that we are called Internet of Things, IoTs, and we have these cameras in public spaces, and we are building a school on the countryside, and we want to enlarge this in the future. In the building of a street, for example, we need to understand that the vigilance mechanisms avoid the wrong use of resources and increase the public trust in the administration. So we suggest strongly that the systems should be used in future and to increase their quality so we can get the best of the systems. In the second phase, in the second step that was already implemented, the cameras will send this kind of image to an AI system to be evaluated. We have different colors for different elements in a building that's being constructed. We can see people, we can see dozers, trucks, things that are normal in a construction site. And we can see that the construction site is going forward as expected. So we hired the construction of a school on the countryside, and we can amplify this to different sectors. So we have technologies that are key to get to this control, this external control. The digital platforms also help us to get to transparency and access to information, allowing all the citizens to be able to check, to fiscalize, and control their own government. Therefore, we have the IoT, deep learning tools, that is a very well-known tool in AI, and we can control and do the big data analysis in real time to detect mainly things that were expected, standards that were expected, but we also can check the arrival of materials, of raw materials, and we can check if the construction is going well or if it's raining a lot in the area. And this is possible through cameras and other technological devices. The Internet of Things makes available for people that are interested sensors and actuators, and this technique that is so advanced, and AI helps us to recognize these patterns of interest. And another thing that is very interesting is blockchain. And blockchain allows to have registers that cannot be changed for transactions between governments. And it makes the manipulation, the corruption almost impossible. Beyond that, you can automate processes with projects that can be controlled automatically. You can have agreements without intervention of human being, avoiding corruption. So why are we so interested in this project at the University Center for Tech? We have this citizen incorporation, and we focus part of our work on society, and we have an externalization of knowledge based on the project. It's very easy to incorporate measurements devices, and this is a very interesting part. We can incorporate other sensors on the already created base to evaluate the climate change impact on site. So check if we are on time with our construction site. Depending on the measurement matrix, we can see how we can learn better, how we can improve our deep learning to have all the data in a more simpler form that are more accessible for the citizen. And in further steps that are being implemented, we want to reach the level where every citizen can know what is happening on the construction site, the community school, highway, and obviously that could be done by other fiscalization entities, but they, the Congress could access the data. So we want to put technology at service of control of fiscalization. And here we see some examples that are very interesting of the incorporation of technology. And in Singapore and South Korea, we had some examples. And during the pandemic, they used digital technology to have transparency and avoid corruption. There are real-time information that is very interesting and open hiring policies to avoid fraud and connection problems. So here at the bottom, this is a report of this development program of the UN. Another example we have is the technologies for information and communication, the TICs, in our efforts against corruption. And these TICs enable many platforms where the citizen has access about corruption, information about corruption, and they also, this information are used to fight the drug deal and drug trafficking. And another example we can see here, these are reports for citizenship. In the transparency part, we talk about the 5 principles for engaging citizens in anti-corruption mechanisms. And these anti-corruption mechanisms, I thought to be interesting to show the importance how people can report corruption in order to be more sustainable. We are showing here why the result can be made by everyone. It's not only technology. We always need to understand how people can help, what motivates them, what are the factors that can make them act. We also have challenges and considerations on the ethical part. We have all these technological parts, the Internet of Things, blockchain, and deep learning, as already said. So, although all these technologies allow us to have all this information for the governmental efficiency, there's another issue that is the privacy of data. So, to implement this technology, it must be done in a planned way with a lot of care to respect the limits that exist for the state. And we are talking the rights of privacy of the citizen. And we also need to protect the data against not allowed access. So a human being can identify that's a person. A camera should identify a person, but not who that is. And or other elements that can violate the privacy. And to get to an end, I want to talk about innovation and call to action. We are using these techniques that will depend on the tools that are very powerful and that offer external control of the government and corruption. So it means that we have a better transparency, but also allows us to allow the participation of the citizens, but it's very important for us as university. But we need a continuous implementation. For that, we need to have a clear perspective. We need to have a continuous effort. We need maintenance. We need to have better technology. We need to have a better deep learning, and we need to have more mature processes where we can handle more data volume. And also we need to educate the people that create laws and create laws for these technologies. And for that, we need to understand everything that I just showed you. I want to invite you to reflect how you can participate. What is your role in all of that to improve governance? And nowadays, maybe today we have one group at power, tomorrow another, but we need to create a future where the technology helps government, helps citizens to have a public management that is honest. Thank you very much to all of you for your attention. And if someone wants to talk to me about these topics, about these technical topics, please get in touch with me. You can write me. Here you have my email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Naranjo. Very interesting. All your experiences that you have shared with us, both internationally and also the challenges, ethical challenges that talks about the use of technology and innovation. Thank you very much. Well, after that, we will show the video about the subject of applied technology, applied checks and control, in which we summarize the initiatives that the project has supported. Innovation applied to external governmental control pandemics caused has brought about the need to review the models of businesses, bringing up to the society, bringing digital transformation in the external financial control through the effective use of digital technologies. It's possible to optimize government audit processes and activities, promote transparency and accountability, as well as drive improvement and modernization of public policies. Regional Anti-Corruption Project OLACEFS German cooperation has developed a series of initiatives to foster innovation in the work of supreme audit institutions in Latin America. Crises, including the one caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, intensify social challenges and cause adverse effects, for which we are now better prepared. Pandemic provided us with lessons that enable us to tackle new challenges in the coming years, in which the risks of corruption is imminent. In this regard, the project has promoted various methodological approaches with the aim of generating solutions for better lifestyle in new contexts. Emphasis on innovation and technology is due to their ability to enhance auditing work, making it more effective and efficient in greater transparency and accountability. It is possible to enable the availability of data and also its massive analysis, helping the decision-making process, thereby efficiency in order to work, among other advantages. With innovation, methodological innovation, SAIs position themselves more effectively as partner of governmental actors, citizens, and other stakeholders working to effectively combat and prevent corruption. Thus, the project of OLACEFS German cooperation supported many initiatives towards promoting digital transformation, highlighting measures for online capacity development and implementation of disruptive tools for audit work. We have raised the capacity level of the participating auditing teams and the quality of auditings that were developed based in this innovation. The arena knowledge that was generated having this thought, this approach, generating references and lessons learned that can be used in other contexts. For OLACEFS German Cooperation Regional Project, the innovation approach placed the people at the center of all efforts. Get to know more about these tools to strengthen innovation and external control.
Gracias.
Thank you. So to close today's event, we're going to listen to the Director of Regional Project Anti-Corruption, Mr. Erwin Ramirez. He will talk about the perspectives and challenges of the regional cooperation, mainly the relation about the control. Erwin, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you very much, Irini. It has been an honor to be part of this special event in which we are going to talk about the ending of the closing of these projects connected to OLACEF. I'd like to thank this agency and also the GIZ, the authorities and those that are working together, the support of the OLACEFs and the transition in the spheres of the OLACEFs. I also like to thank for Mrs. Hannah Smith for the economic cooperation of Germany and Brazil and Latin American countries, Caribbean countries. This is a critical moment of the anti-corruption and also the pandemic because it has revealed the cooperation of governments to mitigate the impact of corruption, especially in the vulnerable context about thinking about the sanitation measures that had to be taken. The implementation of this project has fostered innovation, new methodological innovation supported by the authorities in superior instances, also possible because of the delivery and the time dedicated of the auditors in the technical areas of nursing, the support that is part of the surveillance of this regional cooperation. Well, it deserves the collaboration of colleagues with the human rights people, Inter-American Development Bank, and other strategic agencies and stakeholders that have supported international organizations, consultancies that are specialized in the sector contribution to make it more viable, these SAIs, in the anti-corruption measures that were taken. Also, there are many synergies that were developed with the 2030 agenda in Guatemala and also the regional program of good financial governance for this sector in the system of integration inter-American amongst others. Well, this cooperation with the German GIZ in this region and other operational groups brought about experiences that were learned and best practices to efficient prevention of corruption, both with external governmental control and other agencies. Please, Amanda, Ana Lucia, Ana Paula, Beatriz, Bianca, Doris, Ednei, Irene, Joe Paulo, Katrina, Melissa, Pedro, Vinicius, and Victoria, could you please open your cam along the project, anti-corruption project? They have been key to report the outcomes of this project. 14 years of cooperation. It would be possible to keep on having this alliance without all your support. And I also thank all the speakers that spoke before me. That's a mission in preparation for other technical contribution of OLACEFS and also the cooperation for the socio-ecological transformation, an alliance that will potentially reveal and be more efficient according to the issues of the climate change. We are going to have more information very soon about that. For all of you, I'd like to thank you for your presence today. I'd like to take this time to thank you for the opportunity, for the joint efforts of learning, the best cooperation with the ages, with the German cooperation, and also the professional responsibility in our region. I'd like to say goodbye. Been honored to be part of that, coordinating this great team of work. Thank you very much for your participation, for your presence, for your efforts, for the success. I wish you great afternoon, good evening, or good morning. We will be here strongly committed to this project. Thank you very much for your words. We are going to miss you. That's a final moment. So I'd like to thank you again for your presence. We we wrap it up, this regional project today, anti-corruption, to combat corruption. We have a video that is going to be made available in the YouTube very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, for your participation. And we're going to see very soon one another. Thank you again. Bye-bye for now.